30 years were requested. 8 years were given. And Ted Cruz asked Attorney General Pam Bondi a single question: is this fair? Bondi's answer was 2 words. But before those 2 words, Cruz built a step-by-step structure in the courtroom. Each question was leading to the next. Each answer was laying the groundwork for the next question. And at the end of this structure, Bondi made a commitment with 5 words. These 5 words were the most important moment of this trial. Most people only heard the sentence from this trial: 8 years. The prosecutor requested 30 years, but the judge reduced it to 22 years. But the main issue is not just that sentence. The main issue is how Cruz ended up with that penalty. It started with a leak in 2022. It escalated to protests in front of judges' houses. It reached an assassination attempt. And it was concluded with a sentence announced at the beginning of the week. Each step was dependent on the previous one, and Bondi had to say yes at every step. Subscribe and turn on notifications. We publish these analyses regularly because it is not enough to look only at the last minute to understand a trial. Cruz went back to 2022, the moment the Dobbs decision was leaked from the Supreme Court. This historically unprecedented event, the public disclosure of a yet-to-be-finalized Supreme Court decision, was, according to Cruz, not just a security breach, it was a crime. Cruz read 18 USC Section 1507. Federal law explicitly defines as a crime the act of protesting in front of a judge's house with the intent to influence that judge's decision. And then he said, the 5-year statute of limitations has not expired. The leak occurred in 2022. So the legal process can still be initiated. Cruz made a direct request to Bondi. He asked the FBI to direct this investigation, find the leaker, and charge them. There is a noteworthy detail here. Cruz did not present this request within a theoretical framework. He presented it as a concrete legal instrument. There is a law. The statute of limitations has not expired. A legal process can be initiated. Bondi did not keep her answer secret. He spoke of 63 ongoing investigations. And then he made a sentence: this will not happen under my watch. Cruz took the second step. What was the purpose of the crowds gathering outside the homes of the Supreme Court justices? Cruz asked Bondi directly. Were these crowds trying to influence the court, to pressure the judges? Bondi said 2 words: 100%. Pam Bondi's statement meant an official confirmation in a public Senate hearing and on record that the purpose of the protests in question was to influence a Supreme Court of the United States decision. But the real critical point was this: such a determination of intent was not merely a political assessment. It created a framework that directly brought to the forefront the question of where the line should be drawn between freedom of expression and judicial interference from a legal perspective. Cruz did not settle for this confirmation. He moved on to the previous Justice Department. He recalled former Attorney General Garland's statement. Garland had acknowledged in his own hearing that not a single protester had been prosecuted under 18 USC 1507. And Garland had said the reason for this was that the U.S. Marshal Service did not make arrests. Cruz referred to internal documents obtained later. These documents allegedly contain explicit instructions for the guards not to make arrests under the said law. These allegations have not been officially confirmed, but Cruz recorded the information. According to Cruz's assessment, this was not a lack of coordination. It was a conscious political choice. And this changed the course of the trial. Because Cruz was no longer just talking about a past failure. He was talking about a climate. a climate that starts with pressure in front of judges' houses and extends to a darker point. Ted Cruz here pointed to a specific incident, not just a name. A person who traveled from California to Maryland and was caught in front of a Supreme Court of the United States judge's house, with equipment found on them: firearms, handcuffs, tape, and plastic zip ties. These details were presented directly based on court records to emphasize the seriousness of the incident and its potential danger. Cruz explained who the target was. He conveyed what the potential scope could be: the judge's family, maybe other names. This was not an allegation. This is a case that has gone through the prosecution process, has been recorded in the court records. And Cruz asked, how much punishment did this person get? Before Bondi could answer, Cruz answered his own question: 8 years. The prosecution demanded 30 years. The judge reduced it to 22 years. Cruz conveyed the judge's reasoning. This is Cruz's own interpretation and is being reported as his assessment, not as a definitive judicial finding. He alleged that the judge considered the defendant's transgender identity as a mitigating factor. Cruz presented this comment as his own opinion. He described the judge as liberal and Biden-appointed. These characterizations are Cruz's political judgment. The factual basis Cruz presented is this: the requested sentence was 30 years. The given sentence was 8 years. The difference is 22 years. The Ministry of Justice announced that it would appeal the decision. Cruz did not stop there. He took one more step. He said the judge should be removed from office, directly to the Minister of Justice, in front of the cameras, on record. This was not a light suggestion. It was a senator telling the Attorney General that a federal judge should be impeached. Bondi did not directly respond to the call, but he didn't remain silent either. Pam Bondi, while talking about the prosecutor, Miss Mao, emphasized twice that she did an extraordinary job in the case, framing the process as being conducted professionally by the prosecution and the punishment as a result of the institutional judicial mechanism. Then, stating that she immediately appealed as soon as the decision was announced, she recorded this move as being taken promptly and consciously, sending a direct message to Ted Cruz and the committee. After this statement, Cruz thanked him and moved on to a new question. Was there a possibility of the defendant being placed in a women's prison? At this point, the situation took a different turn. Bondi's answer was 5 words: "It won't happen. In the prison office." This last commitment in the trial was a short but heavy response. No legal explanation, no political debate. 5 words. Ted Cruz came to the hearing with an interconnected framework. He constructed a narrative that the leaks constituted a crime. The protests created a pressure environment on the judiciary, and this climate laid the groundwork for more serious security risks. Within this chain, each step was linked to the next, and ultimately, it was claimed that judicial decisions were influenced by this atmosphere. Pam Bondi, on the other hand, responded to these points one by one, confirming that the protests aimed to influence the judiciary, appealing the sentencing decision, and using the term "not going to happen" regarding prison placement. In this way, the discussion fell within a broader framework of oversight covering both security and justice policy, as well as interagency accountability. But there is a noteworthy detail here. This hearing was not an investigation. Bondi was not being cornered or held accountable. Every question from Cruz was within the realm that Bondi could approve. Bondi knew what she could control and only spoke in those areas. The issue of the judge's dismissal? Silence. When will the leak investigation begin? No specific date has been given. These two issues need to be noted, because what a trial produces are commitments. Whether the commitments will be implemented or not will be seen over time. Pam Bondi's responses to the 4 points raised by Ted Cruz recorded the official position of the Justice Department during the Senate hearing. An 8-year sentence in a case where 30 years were requested, with an objection noted. The statement that protests aim to influence the judiciary being recorded. A request for an investigation into the leak allegations being communicated, and the indication that this would not be possible regarding prison placement. When these four separate responses are read together, it becomes clear that the United States Department of Justice has taken a public and recorded stance on different issues. How these commitments will turn out, time will tell. Tell us in the comments, were Bondi's answers sufficient? Do you believe these commitments will be implemented? Subscribe and turn on notifications. We will continue to follow every development.